because I kind of wanted to wait for the first few weeks of the season to play out and see what sorts of things started happening before I started making predictions, because it's one thing to talk about the off-season and the preseason and use that to try and draw conclusions, but rarely, if ever, do those conclusions bear fruit. You usually have to wait a little bit to see what the season has to offer. So, we're 9, 10, 11 games into the season now, depending on which team you follow. And I found what are, for me, the 10 biggest storylines this season. At the time I am recording the video, today is November 1st. So we're just under a month into the season, pretty much. And these are in no particular order. I'm not ranking these in order of importance, just the order in which I thought of them. Alright, first up, Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, currently playing for the Chicago Blackhawks. One of the greatest American hockey players of all time, let alone one of the greatest in general hockey players of all time. I don't think, he's top 10 or anything, but he's definitely a great player. Multiple cups to his name. He was a part of that Chicago Blackhawks dynasty. And the reports are that he's sort of waiting in the wings currently to decide where he wants to go for the trade deadline. So Patrick Kane, who has spent his entire career in Chicago, been part of the heart and soul of that team. Like I said, won multiple cups with Chicago, part of a dynasty in Chicago. He's going to be playing with a different jersey on in just a few months. It's going to be pretty crazy to see Patrick Kane playing for a different team. And there's reports, is it going to be Colorado? Is it going to be the Rangers? Is it going to be that team you see in the background of this picture right there, the Vegas Golden Knights? But that's a decision Chicago is going to let Patrick Kane sort of decide where he wants to go. I'm not sure if he has a no move or no trade or anything, but they might just be honoring his wishes. But he's going to see what contender he wants to go to at the trade deadline. It's going to be I think it could either be the move that pushes a hopeful team into really solid competitive cup team, or takes a cup favorite and just puts them well over the top. But we'll see, and this trade deadline will be all about Patrick Kane. So that's the first storyline I'm paying attention to this season. Next up, loser Leafs. Now, this is not trying to be disparaging. The Leafs are my second favorite team behind the Vegas Golden Knights. But they're off to a very disappointing start to this season. They have only 10 points through their 10 games they've played so far. They are the second last team in the division. The only team they have a better record than is the Sens, but they've played 2 more games than the Sens, so it's very possible that by the time the Ottawa Senators get to 10 games, they are above the Toronto Maple Leafs in the standings. The fan base and the media have been very vocal about the start, all over social media, on the Canadian sports, television, and radio shows. People want Keefe fired. They want Dubas fired. And there was an incident, the game against Anaheim, where Mitch Marner, he was benched for a shift. He did not go out there on his line, and he threw a bit of a tantrum, broke a stick, and there's been a lot of consternation towards Mitch Marner from the fan base and the media, and a lot of people think that he needs to be the one to go out of the big four forwards on the team, being Tavares, Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. Those are your big four forwards on the team. And a lot of people think that that core needs to be separated. They've had, the better part of a decade now to try and make it work. Besides Tavares, that is, he's a later addition, and they haven't been able to make it work yet. There's been missed playoffs, there's been first round exits, and it's just not working. So a lot of people think one of the pieces needs to be moved, and people see that Austin Matthews is rightfully sort of seen as the franchise centerpiece player. Nylander is probably playing the best of all of them right now, and he's on a fairly decent contract, probably the best contract of the four forwards. Tavares is the captain and the veteran presence, and so Mitch Marner, even though I personally like Mitch Marner a lot, I think that he has the highest potential of all those guys, and it's really just his mentality that holds him back. I think he has a very skilled player, and I think that if he had a better mindset, better mentality, more aggressive, he could be the best out of all of them. It's just basically his brain that holds him back. But he is sort of the odd man out, and Toronto obviously needs an upgrade on defense. Their blue line is very weak, and they're running out Hall every night, who just can't be a mainstay in the defense. So a lot of questions surrounding the Leafs this season, not living up to the expectations they set last season and in the off-season. And I expect that there will be a big shakeup soon, whether it's in the front office or on the roster. Alright, next up, Caufield. So Cole Caufield played a few games at the end of 2019-20, or 2020-2021. The bubble season, he played a few games, and he was scoring really well in those games. And then in 2021-2022, he wasn't really bad, but he was a bit disappointing. He had a really bad plus negative, and the team was massively underperforming after reaching the Stanley Cup final. So Cole Caufield was sent to the AHL. But now to start this season, Cole Caufield has 7 goals in 9 games to start the season. The Canadiens, I'm not sure where they are in the standings. Let me double check real quick. NHL standings. The Canadiens are 6th in the Atlantic with 10 points, but that's a super tight race. They're only 2 points out of second place. The only team that's really pulled away in the Atlantic is the Boston Bruins. So they're in the mix, and they could feasibly make the playoffs, and if they do, I imagine it will be in part due to the insane offensive production of Cole Caufield, and we'll see if he's able to sustain this through the rest of the season. But the start to his year has been nothing short of spectacular. Next up, the cold Canucks. The Canucks are kind of in a similar place to the Leafs, although they did not have the expectations of the Leafs, although they were certainly expected to be better than what they are now. The Canucks opened the season with a 7-game losing streak, and they had multiple losses where they gave up a multiple goal lead. And there's been a lot of questions about the contracts and the future of the team, especially with Oliver Ekman-Larsson on the team. across the board. The Canucks just having a really, really weak blue line. Really, the blue line is just unacceptable for a team that wants to really compete, and a lot of people feel that the team is a bit directionless. Some people want to rebuild, but other people think they want to retool, or they want to wait and see where the team can go. But a lot of people feel that the team is kind of rudderless at the moment because the roster construction doesn't really make sense. You have young players, you have old veterans, but you have a lot of bad albatross contracts. You have a captain who isn't really being a great inspiring force in the locker room. And you have some guys coming up that you have to decide if you want to re-sign or not. The Canucks are in really kind of a weird spot right now. Their home opener, there were jerseys thrown on the ice. I think there's been a couple of games now where Canucks fans have thrown jerseys on the ice, but we'll have to see. The Canucks have won their last 2 games, so they might be trending in the right direction. But the fear is, like, with the team being bad, you want to be bad enough to get a good pick. Maybe you get Connor Bedard or something. But you don't want the Canucks to be in a spot where they're not good enough to make the playoffs, but they're not bad enough to get a high pick and get a franchise-altering player. The worst thing a team can do is be stuck in limbo. You have to either be really good or really bad. Being at that middle ground is just kind of like a slow, shambling death. Alright, next up, Golden Goalies. I am a Vegas Golden Knights fan, so I had to make sure I got some love in here for the VGK. But the Vegas Goalies, the duo of Logan Thompson and Adin Hill, they are combining right now for the best goalie tandem in the NHL. By save percentage, Logan Thompson is 5th best in the NHL, and Adin Hill is 6th best in the NHL with a 9.42 and a 9.40, respectively. And Thompson and Hill have been a big reason that the Golden Knights have gotten off to such a hot start. As of the time of me recording this video, they're currently the number 1 team by points in the entire NHL. They have 18 points in 11 games. However, the second place team, Boston, has played 2 fewer games than Vegas, so it's possible, Boston can surpass them when they make up that game difference. But Thompson and Hill have been a great combo in net and kept Vegas into some games that they eventually went on to win that Vegas really had no business being in. There were games where the offense was completely stagnant, but Thompson or Hill kept them in the game and got them through a period where, they had 1, 2, sometimes 0 shots on goal, and the other team was peppering the goalie, right? And especially Logan Thompson, who's kind of been like the promised child waiting on the horizon to come in and be the starter of the future, with Robin Lehner out for the season, and perhaps even his career being over because of a double hip surgery. Logan Thompson has stepped into the net as a rookie and just immediately become one of the best starting goalies in the NHL, and he's still really young and has room to improve and get better. I think Logan Thompson, let me look at his age. Logan Thompson, he's only 25 years old, which is young for a goalie. Alright, next up, sluggish Cup teams. So the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Colorado Avalanche were the 2 teams that met in the Stanley Cup final at the end of last season. Obviously the Colorado Avalanche winning that cup, but they have both come out to slower than expected starts. Both Tampa Bay and Colorado are currently 4th in their respective divisions. And if you looked at a lot of the expert predictions before the season started, these were teams that were both predicted to win their divisions and were both favored to make it to the Stanley Cup final. I think the most common prediction, especially looking at Vegas odds, was that we were going to have a Tampa Bay versus Colorado Stanley Cup final. Again, second year in a row. Now obviously it's still very early in the season, but it'll be interesting to see if these teams do end up winning their division, or maybe if one of them even ends up missing the playoffs. I think the Lightning might be in more danger of missing the playoffs than the Avalanche. The Lightning are in a much tougher division, but we'll see what happens. Obviously it's still early, but this is definitely a storyline I'm going to be paying attention to throughout the season. Next up, the plucky Pacific. Now the Pacific is always kind of looked at as one of the weakest divisions in the NHL. Historically, it has been very weak, with usually one or two teams standing way above the rest. But as you can see, it's actually pretty competitive here looking at the standings. If you take out the Canucks, the Sharks, and the Ducks, you have 2 teams with 10 points and 2 teams with 12 points, and then Vegas with 18. But the Oilers have only played 9, and most notably, the Flames have only played 7. They're 2 points behind the Kings with 4 games in hand, which is just crazy, and they have a positive goal differential, whereas the Kings have a negative goal differential. And I think the Oilers could potentially win this division. Obviously, Vegas is currently leading it at the moment, but the Oilers have looked amazing this season. The Flames have looked good. The Kings look like they're finally ready to take the next step and maybe make it, we're kind of expecting, because they're a young team, they're going to take that next step, come in, start trying to turn themselves into a contender. And I've been talking about that the last 2 seasons, that it seems like they're getting ready anytime now to take that next leap forward, and it looks like they might be there. I think the Kings could definitely make the playoffs this season. It's going to be interesting because this top 4, there might be one team that's on the outside looking in that doesn't deserve to be on the outside. And right now the Canucks, the Kraken are 4-4-2. They have 10 points. They're off to a decent start as far as they're concerned as the Kraken. And this didn't end up making my list, but there's big concerns with how they're developing Shane Wright. I didn't make my top 10 storylines I'll be following this season, but it is definitely something to take note of. Shane Wright, who was, picked as this generational talent, touted for years as number 1 overall pick, ends up not going number 1 overall, and now the Kraken are barely playing him. Definitely something to pay attention to if you're a Kraken fan. So that'll be interesting to follow. But the Kraken do look like they've improved, definitely from last season. But yeah, the Pacific actually looks like it's going to be a tough, solid division this season compared to some of these past seasons. The Sabres look sharp. Sabres, who have kind of been one of the laughing stocks in this league over the last few years, really kind of since their inception. They're currently second in the Atlantic Division. They have 12 points in 9 games, and their team looks solid. They're fun. They're competitive. And me personally, I think that the Buffalo Sabres are going to make the playoffs. I also want to make specific note of Tage Thompson, who had a 6-point night against Detroit and had a hat trick. I think the final score was like 7-3 against Detroit, but yeah, the Buffalo Sabres, they look fun, they're exciting, they're young, they play fast, they play hard, and I've always liked Buffalo, I feel like the Bills, the Sabres, Buffalo sports fans deserve some happiness. I think Sabres have super nice, beautiful jerseys. I think they have a fun team, a dedicated fan base, and I'm happy for them. And I think the Sabres make the playoffs, and I hope that I'm right about that for their sake. Next up, Ottawa on the block. This is something kind of new that just got reported today, but definitely something to pay attention to now. Sportico is reporting that the Senators Board of Investors is looking into selling the team, which is valued at around $655 million US dollars. This is following the death of Eugene Melnyk, who died earlier this year. He left the team to his daughters, but apparently they are disinterested in owning the team, and they just want to go ahead and sell it. And before anybody says anything about Quebec or Houston or anything else, the team is very unlikely to be moved, because there are certain NHL bylaws about there having to be a conceded effort to do whatever possible to keep the team in the city, with it being the capital of Canada, all this other stuff. I would put the odds that the Ottawa Senators are moved at like 1%. Like, I just think it's very unlikely. This is definitely going to be something interesting to look for as the season plays out, because they're a young team, a team on the up and up. They were expected to be maybe a little bit better than they have been so far, getting to Brinket, Stützle developing, but Ottawa going up for sale to be interesting, because Eugene Melnyk got a lot of flack for many, many years for being cheap, being a bad owner. Maybe the next owners will come in and make Eugene Melnyk look good by comparison. We hope not, but you never know. You get somebody in there who just views the team as a money printer or something, and they're not concerned with being competitive. Or hopefully we get an owner who's invested, wants to bring a cup to Ottawa, and puts money, puts time and effort and love into the team. But time will only tell what happens with the Ottawa Senators, but it is likely that they're not going to be a part of the Melnyk estate anymore. And finally, the bricked up Bruins. The Bruins are off to an extremely hot start with their new head coach Jim Montgomery at the helm. They're currently on a 5-game winning streak, which is tied for the longest winning streak in the NHL with Vegas. However, the Bruins have played 2 fewer games than the Golden Knights have. Also, their current record of 8-1-0 is the best start in franchise history through the first 9 games of the season. And like I said earlier, talking about the Atlantic Division, that division is super close, save for the Bruins, who are in the lead with 18 points. It definitely looks like they could win the division this year. And the Bruins are just that team that never goes away. They refuse to die. They've been in the playoffs. They've been competitive and in the mix like every year. It feels like Boston's always in it. They're always making noise. And they just have a great team culture, great pipeline, great players, great organization, and it's just showing year after year after year. They continue to ice really good, strong teams. So anyways, guys, that is my video. These are the 10 storylines I'm paying close attention to this season at the NHL. I'd love to hear in the comments down below what you guys think about my selections, maybe some things that you think I might have overlooked, what you think about this NHL season so far. I'd love to hear any and all comments. I try to respond to those about once a week or so, so let me know your thoughts. Anyways, guys, if you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this almost every single day. Until next time, bye-bye.